Yeah, sure. So I'm Bryan Cheung. I'm Associate Director of the Manager Research Team of Morningstar Asia. So in terms of my main responsibilities in the team, so one is fund research, and the second is to speak to the clients or the prospects on how we do fund selection, fund research, and also what kind of thought leadership research that we are doing on the industry that we can share with the broader audience and to fulfill our mission to empower investor success.
Okay, great. With that, can you elaborate a little bit on the methodology that was used for this Morningstar Awards?
Yeah, sure. So this one for Malaysia is an annual fund award. So here we are using a quantitative methodology, which looks at the fund's 1-year performance and also the 3-year performance on a risk-adjusted basis. So it's not purely about returns, but also we look at the downside risk of the funds as well. So the reason why we are using 1 and 3 year is that we recognize this in an annual award, so we think it makes sense to emphasize on the 1-year performance. But then we think it's also important to ensure the fund has delivered to investor over a longer time period as well. So that's why we combine the 1-year and 3-year returns and risk to assess the winners.
Right. Great. So can you elaborate a little bit more about how you use this to do portfolio picking? Or what did you say? Asset allocations for portfolios?
Yes. So I think I would say that this award, it aims to recognize the funds and the fund managers or the fund houses that have delivered strong outcome in the past calendar year and also over the longer term. So I think that's a starting point that investor can reference to understand which fund has delivered a more resilient result for them over time. Because I think after all, investing is about long term. We think it's important to really have a longer term time horizon instead of focusing on the short term market movements, which often can be unpredictable. For example, last year I think some key lessons learned are that there's always surprise in the market. For example, probably no one could have predicted the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, or the comeback of inflation, or the fastest rate hike in history, right? So that's why we think investors should maintain a well-diversified portfolio to prepare for different kinds of outcomes in the environment, rather than sort of betting your portfolio on a certain pathway of the macro development. We think that's could be very costly for the investor, because of the unpredictability of future events.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so since you mentioned that the unpredictability and the volatility of the last year, what would you advise investors to look at when it comes to picking the right portfolios of funds for the next coming year, or
Yes.
what kind of philosophy do you think they should adopt?
Yeah, so I think, as I said, long term is the key. And then second is to ensure that your portfolio are well diversified. And by diversification, I mean not just so if you invest into 10 stocks, does it mean you're diversified? It might not be, because besides focusing on the number of investments you have, it's also important to focus on the diversification across different asset classes. For example, stocks and bonds, different regions. Avoid having a heavy home bias in your own market, but instead diversify across the developed markets and also the emerging markets as well. And then lastly is also the diversification across different styles. For example, last year we see rotation from growth equity to value equity. So if your portfolio was very concentrated in growth equity, then you would have suffered quite badly. But then if you took a forward-looking view to prepare for surprise in the market, like the rotation into value equity, then if you diversify between the growth and value equities, then your portfolio probably would have performed better than just having the growth equities. So I think that's a sort of a more robust diversification of portfolio that we want to advocate the investors to maintain.